Shalom, Mishpaka. Shalom, shalom to Yahudah. Shalom to Ephraim. Shalom to the companion who has engrafted and who has joined himself to us, who are even now heeding the word of Yahuwah, whose eyes are being opened, the scales are being removed from your eyes. The deafness is being removed from your ears, the stiffness from your necks, and the hardness from your hearts. And you are beginning to see the veil that has been pulled over your eyes with respect to the world. And you are now, even now, coming out of paganism, coming out of these pagan Circes, and coming out of these pagan organizations, and coming out of darkness into the marvelous light of Yahuwah, which is his Torah. Shalom. Shalom to you worldwide. Shalom to you. To my Masonic friends, and some of you are indeed my friends, I have a message for you this morning. I have a message for you. And that message is, despite what you've been told, but despite what you have been taught, you have been deceived. Not unlike everyone else in Babylon. You're just a small piece of Babylon. Actually, Babylon is centered around Masonic worship, but that's not for this video. But the point is, you have been deceived. A lot of you are good men. A lot of you are good men. I know a lot of you personally, and a lot of you are good men, but you have been deceived. In the words of Malcolm, you have been bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray. You have been deceived. Masonry is the worship of Nimrod. It is the worship of Nimrod. It has nothing to do with the Mashiach. It has nothing at all to do with that. Masonry is, in fact, the worship of Nimrod. Who is Nimrod? Well, Nimrod was the first sovereign of the earth. After the flood, after Yah had destroyed the earth via water, in fact, to cleanse the earth, and in fact, to cleanse the earth of the corruption that the fallen ones, or the 200 watchers, the 200 messengers, whom Yah had given an assignment to watch over his creation, to watch over mankind. These watchers whom left their assignment and then came down and slept with human women and produced giants called Nephilim. Not only was the flesh of mankind corrupted, but animal flesh was corrupted, because the fallen ones then experimented with the mixing of animals, and so that the Nephilim, with the mixing of animals, mixing their DNA with animal DNA. And so from that, you get what the world calls myths or mythology with respect to half animal, half human creatures. This is not myth. This actually happened. And so the word of Yah tells us that all flesh had become corrupted. All flesh had become corrupted. And so he destroyed the earth. He destroyed the earth because everything had become corrupted. And so he started over. He started over with Noach and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, who were pure, who were uncorrupted, who did not have the DNA or the seed of Nephilim or the fallen messengers flowing through their veins. But again, the word of Yah says that all flesh had become corrupted. And so even though Noach and Shem, Ham, and Japhet were uncorrupted, their wives were not. Their wives were in fact corrupted. Hence, before and after the flood, we find Nephilim. We see it with the example of Goliath, who you call Goliath, and Og, and other examples. So that corruption continued even after the flood. So you say, what does that have to do with Nimrod? Well, Nimrod was the first sovereign of the earth after the flood. He built a city, the city of Babel, in the valley of Shinar, where all mankind was gathered to worship him. Now, they worshiped him because he was mightier than all others. How do you say he was mightier than all others? Well, if you research the word, the Hebrew word for mighty, you will find, I believe, the Hebrew word gabar, which means mighty and strong, but it also means giant. It also means giant. Nimrod was, in fact, a Nephilim. He was a Nephilim. In fact, if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is a story about Nimrod, you will, some of the pictures that are shown with respect to the carvings of Gilgamesh, you'll see that he was, in fact, a giant. He was a Nephilim. And so the whole earth in the valley of Shinar worshiped Nimrod. They worshiped him. They worshiped him because he was mighty. He was a giant. And they worshiped him because he had powers. He was, in fact, Nephilim, a descendant of the fallen ones, of fallen Malachim. Thus, he had powers. And he was worshiped as the sun. They worshiped him as the sun. His wife, Semiramis, was also worshiped. She was worshipped as a fertility goddess, and she was worshipped as the moon. Their son, Tammuz, was also worshipped. When Nimrod was killed, he was worshipped as the resurrected Nimrod. He was worshipped as the resurrected Nimrod. And so when the Tower of Babel fell and Yah confounded the languages, the people who were gathered in the valley of Shinar spread out into the entire earth, with now bearing different languages. And in those different languages, they took the worship of Nimrod with them. They took sun worship with them, and they took the worship of Semiramis with them. They took fertility worship with them, and they took the resurrected Nimrod, Tammuz, with them, the worship of the sun with them. And so when they went to different lands, they gave them different names because they had different languages. Some lands, Nimrod became Baal. In some lands, Nimrod became Melech. In some lands, Nimrod became Ra. In some lands, Nimrod became Zeus. In some lands, Nimrod became Odin. In some lands, Nimrod became Woden. Same mighty one, same whom you call God, different name. It is still Nimrod, but different name. So Nimrod worship spread throughout the lands, but he gave them different name. Semiramis became Isis. She became Astarte and Ishtar. She became Diana, and so on and so forth. Tammuz, their son, in Babylon, he was worshipped by his name as Tammuz. In other lands, he was worshipped as Adonis. In other lands, as Bacchus, and as Osiris, and as Horus. Same deities, different names. And so we find Nimrod worship had promulgated into all the lands, and it had not stopped. It had not stopped. And so you ask, what does this have to do with Masonry? What does this have to do with Masonry? Well, as I originally mentioned, that Nimrod was the first sovereign of the earth. He was the first sovereign of Babylon. And so in Babylon, the worship of the heaven, of the host of Shamayim, the sun, the moon, and the Hokabim, was erected. This is where it started. This is where idolatry started. Idolatry is based on the worship of the host of the Shamayim. It is based upon the worship of the sun and the moon and the Hokabim. This is what idolatry is based on, and this started at the first Babylon, which was erected by Nimrod after the flood. The worship of Nimrod and Semiramis and Tammuz as the host of the Shamayim started at Babylon, at the Tower of Babel, after the flood. It is why, my friends, in your celestial, operative word is celestial, lodges, the sun and the moon and the Hokabim, or the stars, are plastered all over the ceiling of your celestial lodges. You see, the aim of Masonry is to replace the truth of Yah, the truth of his instruction, with and to replace, in fact, all religious dogma and superstition with human reason. In other words, with accomplishing things and figuring things out by the power of your own mind, whereby negating the need for Elohim. In fact, in some respects of Masonry, it is taught that, you are your own Elohim. You are your own Elohim. In fact, that, you have the power with using your tools, and some of you will understand what I'm saying, using your tools to yourself shape and mold your own spiritual hekel and our spiritual temple. Only Elohim, only Yahuwah can mold and shape this hekel. We do not have the power or authority to do that. Only Elohim, only Yahuwah can shape this temple or this hekel. Nimrod, Semiramis, and their son Tammuz, my friends, are represented by the worshipful master, the senior warden, and the junior warden. And they are worshipped as the sun. In fact, the eye of Horus, who is an Egyptian sun deity or sun god, is seen in most of your blue celestial lodges, and most or not all, or if not all of your blue celestial lodges. He is encased in the triangle of manifestation, and I encourage you to research the triangle of manifestation. The triangle is a symbol of the Illuminati. It is a symbol of occultism. In fact, that's why Horus is encased in a triangle, which is surrounded by a blazing sun behind it, which is representative of the sun, which is represented by the eye, which is representative of Horus, who is a sun god. But moreover, I say that this is representative of occultism because the eye is called the oculus. The oculus. The word occult comes from oculus, or eye. So when the eye is open, the true light of the sun shines through. When the eye is closed, there is darkness and our ignorance. And so this is what the eye of Horus represents. Not only does he represent Horus, who is a sun god, but it represents occultism. It represents Oculus, which the word occult comes from. But this triangle of manifestation, encased in a blazing sun with the eye of Horus, is situated in the east, behind the worshipful master. The worshipful master is representative of Horus, aka Tammuz, the resurrected Nimrod. Again, when Nimrod was killed, his son Tammuz was worshipped as worshipped as the resurrected Nimrod, and also worshipped as the sun. His father, the father of Horus, is Ra. He is also an Egyptian sun god. As I speak, you may begin to understand why you become Shriners. As I begin to talk some of this Egyptology, so to speak. You may begin to understand why some of you become Shriners. Nevertheless, the father of Horus is Ra, who is also an Egyptian sun god, and Ra is Nimrod. He's just another name for Nimrod. Ultimately, again, he is Nimrod. Fallen Malachim, or what you call angels, taught the wife of Nimrod, who is Semiramis, the forbidden art of astronomy, or astrology rather. Astrology. It is forbidden. We were never meant to learn this. This was taught to mankind by the fallen ones. Before the flood, pre-flood and post-flood, this knowledge was taught to mankind by the fallen ones. In fact, the fallen one whom sin is ascribed to, whom sin is attributed to, called Azazel, he was buried in the wilderness. He was buried in the wilderness in darkness under mountains and mountains of stones. And this is why the scapegoat, some of you, my friends, may be familiar with riding the goat. The scapegoat is sent out to him. You'll have to read Torah, and I don't have time to get into that. This is regarding Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, when the scapegoat is sent out toward Azazel because our sin is ascribed to him. The goat going out to him, being representative of the sins of Yasharal, being sent out to the wilderness to its rightful place. But Semiramis was taught the forbidden art of astrology, and she used this knowledge to cause the world to worship her husband Nimrod, and Tammuz as sun deities. Again, at the fall of the Tower of Babel, when Yah confounded the languages, the mystery Babylonian religion that she started spread throughout the earth. This is in Genesis 11. Every society on earth has a sun deity, has a sun god. Same deity, same god, different names. Again, i.e. Baal and Molech and Ra and Horus and Adonis and Tammuz and Isis. All are Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. The senior warden, who sits in the west, is representative of the sun setting in the west. The junior warden, who sits in the south, sits there as a representative of the sun's position at midday. Each is representative of Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. My friends, within Masonry is hidden the ancient Babylonian mystery religion of sun worship. where ultimately Hashatan, whom the world calls Lucifer, whose real name I won't even mention, but I'll spell, is Helel, and there are other names that he are called by, but in the 66 books of which you call the Biblos, in the Hebrew, he is called Helel, which means bright or shining one. So the mystery hidden within masonry is the ancient Babylonian mystery religion of sun worship, where ultimately Hashatan, the star of the morning, or son of the dawn, is worshipped as the sun. To recap, the sun rises in the east, it sets in the west, and it is in the south at midday. The G that you hold there is not representative of Yahuwah, the Elohim of Yasharal. Rather, its meaning is Theos, which is Greek. You see, the Greek called all of their deities, or their what you call gods, Theos. They all were identified as Theos. Hence, this is the reason that you do not have to have a belief in any particular mighty one, or what you call God, to become a Mason. You must only have a belief in a higher power. That higher power can be any mighty one. Any mighty one. The Elohim of Yasharal has a name, and it is not God. He is Yahuwah Shabbaoth. The Elohim, or God of Masonry, is whom the world calls Lucifer, or which is properly pronounced or spelled in the Hebrew Helel. It also means, the G also means Gnostic, or knowledge. Hence, whenever you go higher, more light or more knowledge is given to you, and the lower you are, the more you are in darkness and are ignorance. Moreover, God, whom the world calls God, is not a title. First off, it is not the name of the Elohim of Yasharal. His name is Yahuwah, but it is not a title, it is a name. And it is the name of the Babylonian sun god, or sun deity of fortune. You can find him in Isaiah, the 65th chapter, the 11th verse. Albert Pike admitted that whom you call Lucifer, who is properly called Helel, is the Elohim of Masonry when he wrote, "That which we must say to the crowd is, we worship God, Elohim." Again, that's not his name. But it is not the Elohim that one adores without superstition. They call following Yah's instructions. This to Masons is superstition. Now, some of you may not adhere to this doctrine, but again, I say to you today that you have been deceived. Masonry as a whole adheres to the doctrine that the commandments or the instructions of Yah is superstition, silly superstition. It goes on to say, to you, sovereign grand inspectors general, we say this, that you may repeat it to the brethren of the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. The Masonic religion, to those of you who say it's not a religion, it is. It is, because it is paganism. It is religion. What is the definition of religion? Here's what you need to understand. Religion is the commandments and doctrines of men, It is the commandments and doctrines of men. It is contrary to the way of Yah. The way of Yah is his instructions, is his Torah. But religion, including Christianity, is the commandments and doctrines of men, which is contrary to the instructions of Yah. Nevertheless, it says the Masonic religion should be, by all of us initiates of the high degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. If Lucifer were not, here it says God or Elohim, if Lucifer were not God or God or Elohim, would Adonai culminate him? Yes, Lucifer is, and I'm only reading what it says here. I don't like saying the word, but I'm only reading what's said here. Yes, Lucifer is God. And this was written by General Albert Pike, 33rd degree. 33rd degree. Again, 33 is not representative of, well, I haven't gotten to that yet. But within the eastern stars, my sisters, and some of you are my friends. Some of you are my friends. Isis, a.k.a. Semiramis, who is also known as a sun goddess, is worshipped. Hence, you are called eastern stars, representative of the sun rising in the east. It is mystery, Babylonian mysticism, hidden in the cloak of Masonry and the Eastern stars. You are being deceived. You are being hoodwinked. You are being led astray. 33, the number 33, is not representative of the age of Hamashiach, who you call the Christ or Christos. It is representative of the 1/3 of the fallen messengers, whom you call angels, that rebelled with Hel, whom the world calls Lucifer. Remember, it was the fallen ones who taught mankind astrology. It was the fallen ones who taught mankind idolatry, who taught mankind magic and the mixing of magic potions and weapons and the worship of demons and abortion and the beautifying of the eyes. The drinking of the blood or cannibalism was introduced by the offspring of the fallen ones, the Nephilim of the giants, whom still exist on the earth, both in physical form and in spiritual form, a Ruach-like form. And Ruach-like form, they are called demons. Demons are the disembodied spirits or Ruachs of the Nephilim who died or perished during the flood. So all of these things were taught by the fallen ones. Hence, you have the number 33, which is representative of 1/3 of them that, in accordance with Hazon of Revelation 12, rebelled with Hel, and who were thrown out of Shamayim. Likewise, Hiram Abiff is only an allegory. You find him in scripture, but you do not find the allegory that you use in Masonry. It is only an allegory. It is a story with spiritual implications or spiritual meanings, but it is an allegory and it is a story. But the story does have significance. You see, he is an anti-Mashiach figure, whom you call Antichrist, as Masonry is mystic, mystery, Babylon. Hiram Abiff does not represent the resurrected Mashiach. He represents the resurrected Nimrod, as I will show you in just a minute. But he represents the resurrected Nimrod, who is the beast coming up out of the pit in Hazon of Revelation 13. Hiram Abiff received a deadly blow to the head and was then resurrected. This should resonate with you, my friends. He received a deadly blow to the head and then he was resurrected. He was resurrected, making him a king to a resurrected Hamashiach, thus making him an anti-Mashiach, because Mashiach, Hamashiach, Yahushua Hamashiach, is the only one who has been resurrected thus far by the Ruach HaKodesh only, without the interdiction of mankind or man in any way. Not that man can resurrect anyone, but Yah uses mankind to resurrect folk, i.e. Lazarus. I know that was Elohim, but he was in the body of a man. Nevertheless, the Hamashiach is the only one who has been resurrected thus far by Yah himself without the interdiction of man. So Hiram Abiff is an anti-Mashiach. He is an anti-Mashiach. In Hazon, the Revelation, the 13th chapter, verse 1 through 3, and again, he is representative of the resurrected Nimrod, which is the plan of Masonry, to resurrect Nimrod and to resurrect Babylon on earth, to get rid of all contrary beliefs, to get rid of all contrary religions, akin to the lawless one in 2 Thessalonians, removing all other religions and persecuting everyone who worships any other deity or calls any other deity or any other thing Elohim or God besides him. And so as we read above with the words of Albert Pike, the goal of Masonry is to dispel or to get rid of all religion and all contrary beliefs that are contrary to Masonry, which is the religion of Babylon, which is centered around, it has been for thousands of years, which is centered around resurrecting the dead Nimrod, which is depicted in the story of Hiram Abiff. Nevertheless, in Hazon chapter 13, verse 1 through 3, we read, "And I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads names of blasphemy. And the beast I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as having been slain to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the earth marveled after the beast." And all the earth marveled after the beast. Again, recall the allegory of Hiram Abiff, who received a deadly wound to the head, as mentioned here in Hazon 13. He received a deadly blow to the head, and it was healed. Akin to Hiram Abiff, whose womb was healed and he was resurrected. The story of Hiram Abiff is the story of Nimrod and Nimrod being resurrected. Going on. Hazon, the 13th chapter, the 18th verse. Here is Hakma. "He who has understanding, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. You want to guess the numerical number of the name of Nimrod? It is 666. Yes, it is 666. Nimrod is the beast. Nimrod is the beast. Without Nimrod, there is no beast. Without Nimrod, there is no beast system. Without Nimrod, there is no worship of the sun. Without Nimrod, there is no idolatry. He was the first anti-Mashiach, and he will be the last anti-Mashiach, or what you call Christ. He is the beast. And within Masonry, you are worshiping the beast. You are worshiping Nimrod. And the stories and your allegories and your ceremonies are all related to Nimrod. The story or allegory of Hiram Abiff is about Nimrod receiving a deadly blow to the head. Now, what you don't know, because most of you have not read the apocryphal scriptures, what you don't know is the way that Nimrod actually died was via his head being cut off by my father Shem. His head was removed from him. He received a deadly blow to the head. This is how he died. Thus, in Hazon, the 13th chapter, we read that he received a deadly blow to the head, and it was healed. It was healed. How was it healed? How was it healed? Let's read on. And the messenger said to me, this is Hazon chapter 17, verse 7 through 8. And the messenger said to me, why did you marvel? Let me explain to you the secret of the woman and the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The woman is Babylon. The 7 heads or 7 mountains are representative of Rome, where the woman sits, where Mystery Babylon is now being promulgated. I don't have time to address the 4 beasts. If you want an understanding of that, then I previously made a video regarding the abomination of desolation and the man of lawlessness revealed. So for an in-depth understanding of the 4 beasts and Nimrod, I encourage you to watch that video. Nevertheless, the 7 heads and 10 horns, but the 7 heads or 7 mountains, Rome was founded on 7 hills. Rome was founded on 7 hills. Rome is the 4th beast that will last until the end. And Rome is the 4th beast that promulgates, that pushes out the mystery Babylonian religion. All the previous 3 beasts did the same thing. The numerical number of Rome, the representative of Rome, is 666. Nevertheless, it reads here, let me explain to you the secret of the woman and the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast, the 10 horns representing 10 kingdoms or 10 reigns. The beast that you saw was, listen, the beast that you saw was and is not and is about to come up out of the deep. This is the resurrected Nimrod. The beast that you saw was and is not and is about to come up out of the pit. This is the beast that received the deadly blow to the head, and it was healed. Remember, Nimrod received a deadly blow to the head as he was slain. His head was cut off by Shem. Hiram Abiff received a deadly blow to the head, and he was resurrected. Hiram Abiff is representative of the resurrected Nimrod. He is representative of Nimrod. He is representative of Nimrod. The reason Masonry is hidden is because it is esoteric. It is occultism. Representative of the eye opening and closing. It's only open to you and to those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. It is closed to those who are in ignorance. The eye meaning oculus, the word occult coming from the word oculus. That's why you have the all-seeing eye. It is representative of the occult. Eye meaning oculus, the word occult coming from the word oculus. Nevertheless, it reads, and is about to come up out of the pit and goes to destruction. And those dwelling on the earth whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world shall marvel when they see the beast that was and is not and yet is. When Nimrod is resurrected, in accordance with Scripture, the whole world is going to worship him. They're going to marvel at him. They're going to take his mark, which is representative of his name, Nimrod, 666, on the hand or on the forehead. They're going to marvel at this at this giant of a man, this Nephilim. They're going to marvel at him who has powers, And if you don't know anything about CERN, C-E-R-N, CERN, research it, research CERN, and then gain an understanding of what it is that they are actually doing. Understand where they are located, where they sit, and why they sit there, and gain an understanding of what it is that they are trying to do and the portals that they are trying to open. They are attempting to resurrect Nimrod. Their goal, the goal of Masonry, the goal of the Illuminati, who are Masons, the goal of the occult is to reinstall physical Babylon on Earth. They want to reduce the Earth's population to 500 million. Research the Georgia Guidestones. That number is just not some obscure number. More than likely, that is the same amount of people that were in the valley of Shinar in the first Babel who worshipped Nimrod. They want to reinstall a physical Babylon on earth where Nimrod, the beast, the first anti-Mashiach and the last anti-Mashiach, will be worshipped as the sovereign of the earth, the one sovereign of the earth. And so you, my friends, within Masonry, you are serving him. You are worshiping him. Even if you are Christian, you are still worshiping Nimrod and serving Nimrod, as the celebration of Christmas is the birthday of Nimrod. Astarte, the celebration of Easter, is the worship of Semiramis. The crux or cross that you use, that you wear, that's on your churches, is representative. This is the sign of Tammuz. The crux has always been a sign of sun worship for thousands of years. It represents the sun crossing the sky at different solstices and or different seasons of the year. It has always been a sign of sun worship, or a symbol of sun worship. In fact, when you look at carvings of Nimrod, who is depicted in the Epic of Gilgamesh, you will see him wearing a anak, or I may have said it right, or a crux with a loop on it. The crux, a cross, is his sign. He is worshipped as the sun, and he wears his symbol. The steeple, what you call steeple, is actually an obelisk. It has been a sign or symbol of sun worship for thousands of years. It has also been a symbol of fertility worship. Fertility worship and sun worship go hand in hand. Thus, in sun worship ceremonies, there's always sex magic rituals going on. This is mother sun worship. Tammuz being worshipped as the sun, who is the sun, and the mother being worshipped as a fertility goddess, who is Semiramis. This is why the Catholic Circe holds the mother sun worship so high in regard. And so even if you are within Christianity, you're still worshiping Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. But it is within the hidden veil of Masonry where it all comes together. I'll leave you with this scripture, and it comes from Isaiah, Yashayahu, the 48th chapter, the 13th verse through the 14th verse. You are exhausted by your many counsels. Let the astrologers to stargazers, and those who prognosticate by the new moon stand up and save you from what is coming upon you. See, they shall be as stubble. Fire shall burn them. They do not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There is not a coal to be warmed by, nor a fire to sit before it. Come out of her, my friends. Come out of her, my people, lest you suffer in her sins and receive of her plagues. Come out of her, my people. Come out of paganism. Come out of these pagan Circes. Come out of these pagan organizations. Come out of them and be immersed in the true Shem of Yahusha, whereby being cleansed from your dirt and your filth and the paganism that you have been involved in, whereby being cleansed from your menstrual cycle, be cleansed from your leprosy, be cleansed from your running sores, be cleansed from touching the dead things of Babylon, and be raised to the newness of life, given a fresh chance. When I say immersed, be immersed, I am not talking about the Babylonian baptismo of going backwards. That is pagan. But the true immersion, the tabla, which is a derivative of the Hebrew word tabal, which means to dip. It is a dipping up and down, which involves no hands. In the Hebrew culture, the father is the first to touch the child. And so, in the same way, when we are immersed in the true name of Yahusha, there are no hands that touch us. When we dip down and come up, when we go down, it symbolizes that we are dying with our Hamashiach, thus the penalty of death being paid in him and in him and in us. When we dip, when we die with him and we come up to the newness of life, when we come up to the newness of life, and when we come up, the hands of the Father, Yahuwah Elohim, are the first to touch us with his Ruach HaKodesh. The first to touch us, no human hands. He being the first to touch us. Be immersed and be cleansed and be washed from your sins, whereby now be invited back into the camp of Yasharal. You who were once outside of the camp, you could not come inside the camp because of your uncleanness, because of your filth, because of your menstrual cycle, because of your leprosy and your running sores, because you have touched dead things. You could not come into the camp. But when you are washed by the immersion in the true Shem of Yahusha, and you are cleansed by his blood, by the water and the blood, you are cleansed, and now you are invited back into the camp of Yasharal, the one bride of Yahuwah, the one son of Yahuwah, the one first fruit of Yahuwah, whom the covenants were given to, the promise is given to, and the inheritance is given to. When you were invited back into the camp, and you are engrafted into her, engrafted into us, you are now privy to the same covenants, the same promise, and the same inheritance that was given to Yasharal and to Yasharal alone. Come out of her, my people. Come out of her. This is the true good news that I have given you. This is the true good news that you who were once far off, who were divorced and put away, who could not come into the camp because of your filth and because of your uncleanness, because of the shed blood of Hamashiach, who is the stone laid in Zion, in which the whole house of Yasharal is built upon, both Ephraim and Yahudah, and the stranger or companion who would join himself to us. He is the chief cornerstone who completes the whole bayith of Yasharal. Through him and by him, you can now come back to the house of Yasharal and be one with us. This is the true Besorah. This is the true good news. I have not given you a false gospel this day. I have given you the true good news on this Yom. My people, come out of her. Come out of her. And so the same message that has been resonating for 2,000 years, the same message that Yahuchanan the Immerser spoke, and that Yahushua HaMashiach himself spoke. Teshubah, Teshubah, which means to repent. Repent from what? Sin. What is sin? In accordance with Yahuchanan Aleph, the 3rd chapter, the 4th verse, that is 1 John, the 3rd chapter, and the 4th verse, sin is transgression of Torah. And so the message I have for you is Teshubah. The reign of Elohim is near. Shalom.